Okay, Mr. Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, big news. That's right. Conor Benn has a massive fight on his hands against Eubank Jr. at a higher weight class that he hasn't fought in. People are saying why. I mean, but how important this fight is to happen to the point where it had to happen at any weight class?
Just bigger than boxing. Born rivals. You know, Benn Eubank is a rivalry that stems over 30 years in the sport. You know, my dad promoted number one, my dad promoted number two. Ever since these guys turned pro, it was like the dream fight, the dream matchup. And we kind of got to a point where Eubank's at, I guess, the back end of his career. Conor Benn's at really the start of his career in terms of big fights. The conversation took place and it was just too big not to do, in all honesty. You know, I think the disadvantage to Conor Benn is obviously moving up a weight division. The disadvantage to Eubank is having to boil down a few pounds that he wouldn't have to normally do. But I couldn't stop this fight happening because of the fire inside Conor Benn's belly. And it's hard to explain, especially to you two fine American gentlemen, but the rivalry and the history is so deep and the hatred is so deep. There is respect there between the two now, but it's just different. And this fight will go down as one of the biggest fights in British boxing history, one of the biggest fights I've ever promoted. And I know people write Conor Benn off, but I really believe he'll win the fight. And we know the plans before and after will be for him to become a world welterweight champion. But this fight in its magnitude was just too big to say no.
Well, speaking from an American point of view, I can tell you that both fighters were great. You know, Benn and Eubank, when they fought at 160, you know, and then all of a sudden they fought again. They both had titles at 168. So from an American point of view, it's an amazing fight as concerning names, but we wouldn't know how it hit the country. And speaking to people from the UK, it seems like it's going to be something big. I say the bigger disadvantage is in Conor Benn's side. What do you say?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's something we had to consider, you know, and that's something that we had to consider, particularly on the weight of the fight, because Conor Benn comes in very, very heavy at fight night for a welterweight, not for a middleweight, but for a welterweight. And Chris Eubank Jr. comes in very light on fight night for a middleweight. But I agree with you, it's a bigger disadvantage for Conor Benn. It's something that him and Tony Sims had to consider. But again, Barack, it's like, this is a fight that the entire country will be talking about. Like, they'll be stopping on the street to watch this fight. Like, every age group, the younger generation who are now Conor Benn fans, plus the oldies of my age and much older than me, of 50 and 60, that went to and watched the first two fights. You know, the second fight had an audience of, I think it was 18 million on ITV. Like that's in the UK alone.
That's insane. Now, Eddie, considering all of those disadvantages that Conor has, with great risk, there's great reward, right? So should he go up in weight and say knock out a Eubank Jr., how massive would Conor be in the country? How big of a star would he be?
Well, he's already. Listen, it's a big risk for him, but again, it comes down to just something that he wanted to do. I see his future at 147. Eventually, he's 100% moving up to 154, 100%. I don't see him ever really hitting 160, and he won't be weighing in for 160 for this fight either, but it's just, the future's at 147. But again, we see stuff that happens in the gym, and I know sparring. They ain't sparring no welterweights in the gym. Yeah. He's sparring big middleweights, and he's taking them out. So we look at this fight differently. You know, I've seen a couple of people say, oh, this is a mistake. This is like Gennady Golovkin against Kell Brook. I know that the weight is similar, of a welterweight jumping up to middleweight, even though this fight isn't at the middleweight limit. But Chris Eubank Jr., he's well beatable, and he's well beatable for Conor Benn. It's a tough fight. Eubank has a great chin. He's very fit. He has a great engine. But this is a tremendous matchup that will catch fire from round one.
I'd like to know, who do you think in their respective divisions, who do you think has the better resume already?
I mean, if you're looking at wins, like Chris Eubank Jr. beat a faded James DeGale, but he still beat a James DeGale. You know, he had a good fight with George Groves. I know George was injured at the end of that fight and going into the fight, but I rate Eubank. I think he's tough as granite. He has a great chin, just like his dad. But he's not, I don't see him necessarily as an elite middleweight. I think he's a world-class middleweight, but I don't believe he beats any of the good, the world champions at middleweight. I don't think he beats Charlo. I don't think he beats Golovkin, of course. I don't think he beats Canelo, of course. Right. But listen, this is a massive fight for him. And you talk about Conor Benn winning this fight. If Eubank wins this fight, I think he can fight a Gennady Golovkin in the UK or a Canelo Alvarez at Wembley. So this is a massive fight for both. But it's deeper than what's next. It's Eubank Benn, and I can't explain that. It gives me goosebumps just saying that. Born Rivals, that's the name of the show, and it's huge.
And obviously it would be live on DAZN here in America.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what if Ben says, hey, you know what, kind of like Ryan Garcia, he experienced 140, he's like, man, I'm never going back down.
That happens a lot.
What if Ben does that and says, I want Charlo next, if he's able to beat Eubank? What do? You just resign? All right, that's it. I can't promote you no more.
No, that happens a lot. You see even like Canelo Alvarez, he can't go back to 160 because he's fought at 168 and at 175. It's very difficult when you change, like he's going to do different things in his training camp, Conor Benn. It's not just about the feeling of being up at that weight. It's how your body changes in training camp to bring it back down, to take some muscle mass off, to do all this to get it back to 47. And he's tight at 47. So, but just so excited about this fight. So excited to build up the shoulder programming, the dads, massive.
No, massive. And we love Conor over here, so we're looking forward to that fight. So.
You said that like we don't love Chris Eubank over here.
No, we like Chris as well, man, but we've developed a better relationship with Conor. Come on, stop faking the fuck. All right, Eddie. Take it easy.
All right, guys. Take care.